In Scrap, after getting laid off, young single mum Beth finds herself living in her car and struggles to hide her homelessness from her estranged brother Ben. Scrap is directed by Vivian Kerr, and this was her directorial debut. She has since gone on to direct the film Science, and Scrap debuted at the 2022 Deauville Film Festival in France and is now available to rent and buy on various VOD platforms and also to watch on Tubi. Scrap is a pretty impressive directorial debut from writer-director Vivian Kerr. Manages to pack a lot of different plot lines and themes throughout its 1 hour and 40-minute running time. In this film, Beth is played by the director Vivian Kerr, and she's a single mum. We meet her in this film. She is living in her car, and we get the impression that she's been doing this for a while because she has this kind of like whole system set out, like everything in its perfect spot, and just the way she's living in her car just seems natural to her. And she's parking on the streets of Los Angeles, just in suburban neighborhoods, in front of houses, and sometimes she gets like people knocking on her window, like concerned for her or annoyed by her that she's parking and living on that street. I think one of the strengths of this film for me was the way we gain information as the film goes on. I like how there's not a lot of exposition, like there's no dialogue in the film explained to us what's going on. So we as a viewer, we're kind of in a same position as her brother. As the film goes on, we find out more and more details about her, why she's living in a car and why she's separated from her daughter. We find out basically in phone calls when she's living in her car that she's looking for another job, she's doing interviews, her brother is looking after her daughter. But she's basically living a life of desperation and lies. She basically has to lie to everybody in her life just to get by. But these lies tend to catch up to her later on in the film when her car gets broken into and it's not really safe for her to sleep in her car. So I guess out of desperation, she asks her brother if she can stay with him. His brother, played by Anthony Rapp, and his wife, played by Lana, Parrilla. They have their own subplot in the film. Anthony Rapp, he is a novelist. He writes these fantasy novels, and he's not really. He basically just does them for the cash. He's not really invested in those novels. He's basically using them as a step to advance his career. He wants to write these non-fiction novels. He has this Billie Holiday non-fiction novel that he really wants to get published. So, and his wife, played by Lana Parrilla, is a lawyer, I think, or works for a lawyer, and they both are trying to have a child, and they go through the whole process of seeing doctors and appointments and medication and routines, and it's not really paying off for them at the moment. So when Beth, played by Vivian Kerr, she asks to stay with her brother, it's not really good timing for them, but as we find out later in the film, both Vivian Kerr and Anthony Rapp, they lost their parents when they were younger. I assume it's a plane crash because we see a newspaper clipping through the film, and Ben had to look after Beth when they were younger. And you're thinking, if Beth lost her job only a few weeks ago, how can she be in this situation? Doesn't she have any money or savings, or how can she be so responsible when she has a 5-year-old daughter to look after? But as the film goes on, you can see how irresponsible she is with money, especially when she has the opportunity to stay with her brother. She kind of lets go and stops looking for a job and just spends money like crazy. There's also another subplot through the film. Beth, in the first half of the film, keeps getting these phone calls, and she's labelled it as do not answer. And as the film goes on, we find out it's from her ex, played by Brad Schmidt. And when she got pregnant, he basically ran away and didn't want to be involved in her life. But he's come back into the picture, and he really wants to be with her and be involved in his daughter's life. There's also a nice little cute romance between Beth and a Cleo Thomas who works at a roller skating rink. And the film doesn't really push the romance too much. It handles it in a very mature way, and it pays off at the end. Beth staying with Anthony Rapp and his wife Lana, it really puts pressure on their struggle to have a baby, and and when they don't know, she doesn't have a timeline of when she's going to leave, and it just makes the whole situation stressful for everybody. And I like how the film just draws parallels between Beth's irresponsibility in her life and her brother and his wife's struggles to have a baby. It's like, we're trying to have a baby, but you already have a child and you are irresponsible, and you don't seem to have a carefree attitude. So I think that's one of the strengths of the film, how it draws that parallel between a couple who's really wants to be responsible and have a baby, and someone who is not so much. For the most part, this is a dramatic film, but it does balance the dramatic comedic elements of the film very well. In her first half of the film, it does get difficult at times to sympathize with Beth's journey because she's been so irresponsible, but she gets in so many comedic situations, you can't help but feel for her journey because she is so likable and so endearing in those scenes. The director Vivian Kerr really handles the character arc of Beth very well. It's believable. There's a moment in maybe the last act of the film where Beth is going for a job interview, and the interviewee asks her, "How did you get your black eye?" And you can just see Beth, she just freezes for 5 seconds, and she computes, "I have to stop lying, I have to stop lying, I have to stop lying." And it's that moment in the film when she switches from, okay, I'm going to stop lying, and then that actually is a benefit for her in that situation. I give Scrap 3.5 stars out of 5. I definitely recommend checking out this directorial debut from Vivian Kerr. It balances the dramatic and comedic elements very well, and Beth feels like a real character. Really sympathize with her as the film goes on, and director Vivian Kerr really handles the character arc of Beth as the film goes on, and it comes across as very real and relatable. So I definitely recommend checking out this film, Scrap. Thanks for watching. What do you think of Scrap? Please comment below what you thought of the film. See you next time. Bye.